I will always be your voice.
Hi everyone. So today I decided to just talk about our journey with autism, seeing others talk about their story. I've also decided to share my story. So Shayla is right now 9 years old, and we got our diagnosis when she was about 2.5 to 3 years old. We were fortunate enough to have Shayla in daycare after my mat leave. So about 13 months she went into daycare. And to me, everything was fine. She was my first child. So she was the only, having her was the only experience I actually had with raising a child. So everything felt fine to me. Everything looked normal to me. But having her in daycare, obviously the daycare teachers, they were around kids every day. So they started to raise some red flags, pointing out a few things, saying that Shayla was not communicating like the other kids were. She didn't have as many words as the other kids. She wasn't participating like the other kids, and so on and so forth. So with them raising some questions, I started to look at her a little bit more closely. And yes, I noticed some things were a little bit off. I started doing some research, and we noticed that things were a little bit off. So we went to a pediatrician, and from the pediatrician observing her and asking us questions and seeing how she's grown, she decided to refer us to a neurologist. Now, with all the research that we had done, we landed on potentially autism. I don't know why, but I guess just with speaking with people and doing research, the little signs that we were seeing, it kind of sort of led us on that. So while we waited for the neurologist appointment, specialist appointments take forever, we decided to start working with her. So we got in on a speech therapist, we got in an ABA therapist, we started doing the gluten-free diet. So we just started doing things, just doing anything in the meantime to see whether or not that would help. So some of the things that we noticed was, the biggest thing that we noticed was her regression in her words. Shayla was talking and having fun and a happy baby and eating everything and bouncing around the place and everything. And I remember, I remember that there was one day, I will always remember that day, because that day is one of my biggest regrets. Shayla was, I don't know what we were doing, but we were just at home having fun, and she was like, mommy, 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 and I'm like, oh my god, Shayla, just stop calling mommy, just leave mommy alone. And I remember this day, and I will never forget this day, and it's something that I regret. I shushed my child. I told her to leave me alone. I told her to stop calling me. And I would give the world to have my child call me like that again. I would give the world to hear her say mommy. I would do anything for it. Anything for it. Yeah. Another thing was that her hands, every time she put her hands down, her hands were like this. It would turn, it would twist. The doctors later confirmed, okay, so she's double jointed and everything, but it was something that she always did, to the point where even today, one of her stems are this. She consistently and always rubbing and pulling and twisting her hands and wringing her hands. We call it hand wringing her hands. So these are the little things that we noticed. In addition to what the daycare was saying, she's never had a problem with food. She's always ate everything. This kid has an appetite on her. She eats everything. Eye contact was always there. We never had an issue with that. Every time we called Shayla, she would look us right in the eye. Her being affectionate and her wanting to touch, she's always wanted that. She's always comfortable with that. We can hug her, we can touch her, we can hold her. Other people can be around her. She's never had any issues with that. So we finally got to see a neurologist, and of course he had a lot of questions, a lot of tests and everything for her to do right there in the office. And based on what he observed and based on the test that he did, check her size, her head, her reaction, her responses, whether or not she's looking, whether or not she's not looking when you call her name and stuff like that. So he also thought it was autism, and started putting some things in place for us. That said, we went back sometime later to get our official diagnosis. As much as we were preparing for autism, getting the official paper that said your daughter has severe autism, that killed me. That destroyed me. Although we were preparing for it, it was official at this point. My child had autism. I remember that night I didn't sleep. I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried some more. I remember speaking to Sean about it, and he was like, but we knew, we were preparing for it. So why is it hitting you so hard? But at the end of the day, as much as we knew and we were preparing for it, I don't know, just having it on paper just made it real to me. I hit my rock bottom for sure. Like, I hit my rock bottom. I was so confused. I felt alone. I felt, okay, like I just felt so alone. Like I didn't know what to do. But yeah, so just feeling like, okay, what do I do next? How do I navigate this? What do I do for my child? Can I help my child? All of that just becomes so overwhelming. Just so overwhelming. Some days were like, I don't want to do anything. And some days was like in overdrive. Okay, let's do this and let's do that and let's call that person, let's call that person. At the end of the day, my ultimate goal was, okay, she has autism. What do we do? How can we help her? How can I help her? Can I help my child? Can I help my child? These are the questions that I was left with. I started sharing with my family slowly but surely about the diagnosis. I didn't tell a lot of people. I told my immediate family. I was embarrassed as well. My brothers both have kids and they're fine. They're perfectly healthy and they're fine. And I have my child and she has a disability. She's diagnosed with something. So I felt guilty. I felt embarrassed. But the great thing was that my family was so supportive. They've always been supportive. They love Shayla. Don't get me wrong, I love my daughter too, but they've always just been so supportive. I have a great support system. So walking out of the doctor's office with a piece of paper, although we had done research before, although yes, we had people who were helping us along the way, you still felt alone. Like I still felt alone. Like, what do I do now? What next? Like, what do I do? I felt so alone. And I think with the shock of seeing it on paper, and again, although we were preparing for it, it was just something different that just happened when I got that piece of paper. I felt like I was in a little world all by myself. I didn't want to hear anything. I didn't want to, like, I was just like, I was in denial. That's it. I was in denial. I was in denial for a while. And again, it's weird to say this because we had done all the steps and we were doing things for her. I don't know. That piece of paper just rocked me. Just having that diagnosis just rocked me. This is just, I never thought it was going to be this emotional. It is. So I hope you guys got something out of this. I appreciate you watching and stay tuned for the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.